Is it still worth buying property in Valencia in 2026? The Valencia market today feels very different from when we first started investing here. Only 4 years ago, you could still buy a 2 bedroom, 1 bathroom apartment that only needed a little bit of paint on the walls, all for under 100,000 euros. You could rent that same apartment within weeks for 8 to 9 euros. The numbers worked immediately. You didn't need to redo a bathroom or change a kitchen. You just needed to be here to buy it. So really, everything was an opportunity. And there wasn't such a thing as a bad purchase. But now, come 2026, real estate in Valencia has changed. According to Idealista data, prices in Valencia have reached historic highs, with some areas rising more than 25% year over year. And honestly, I know those numbers say one thing and that they are very high, but on the ground, it feels even faster. Perhaps because 25% is the average of the region. Because from firsthand experience, some properties that we bought just over a year and a half ago have increased by up to 70 to 80%. So the big question is it still worth buying property in Valencia in 2026? In this video, I want to talk about why, yes, it is still worth it, how to buy to make your numbers work, what we are personally looking at now, and what budget actually makes sense today. A lot of Spaniards right now feel like prices are exploding, and this must be a boom, and that prices will eventually go back down. And yes, prices are exploding, but the likelihood of it going back to where it was a couple years ago is very unlikely because the price increases are not driven by hype. First off, housing supply in Spain is very limited because of government regulation that isn't allowing new construction at the rate it's actually needed. And this problem will take years to overcome. Meanwhile, demand keeps increasing as EU buyers are arriving to Valencia and Spain, digital nomads are moving here, retirees are spending more time here, and people are relocating for work. And when you combine that with the amount of money being invested in infrastructure in both the public and private sector, from park expansion of the Turia to new malls, new logistics centers, and more things being built in Valencia City and the surrounding area, you understand why investors are still entering the market without blinking twice. So yeah, 2026 is definitely not 2021. But that doesn't mean that opportunity is gone. It just means that you have to be a little bit more strategic, but it's still a great time to buy. It is absolutely worth buying in Valencia if you have a mortgage, which is one of the biggest advantages right now. Mortgages in Spain are roughly around 2 to 2.8%, depending on your profile, and sometimes even lower. The only caveat about Spanish banks is that they care more about you receiving a stable income, and preferably if it's received here in Spain, rather than about how much cash or assets you actually have. So you can have a lot of savings and a lot of properties, but if your income is inconsistent, getting a mortgage becomes a little bit more challenging. So of course, with a mortgage, this changes the whole math of investing and buying property in Valencia. It's still worth buying in Valencia because the city is growing fast, and not just because it was voted one of the best places to live. It's becoming an economic center as real infrastructure is being built around the city and region. There are logistic hubs expanding from big companies like Mercadona, which is a very big supermarket here, and Inditex, the owners of Zara. Volkswagen is currently building a mega factory to create electric car batteries. Of course, all of this is naturally going to bring thousands of jobs into the region. This is going to increase housing demand even more and will bring a demand for more development, more infrastructure, and more business in the area. You also have lifestyle growth. Like myself, people are moving to cities that feel more livable, meaning close to the beach, that are walkable, with good weather, affordable, and have a slower pace of life than what bigger cities and capitals offer. And honestly, there's not a ton of places that check all these boxes, but Valencia does. So when people ask, is the market overheated? Is this a bubble? I think the better question is Valencia still expanding? And right now, the answer is yes. Real estate deals in Valencia still exist. They might need a little bit more work than before. You might be looking at a third or fourth floor apartment with no elevator in the building, only one bathroom for a three-bedroom apartment, an older kitchen that needs to be remodeled, and probably a building that's from the 60s or 70s in a neighborhood that feels a little early. But honestly, that's where the opportunity still lives. Because if you wait for the perfect new or renovated apartment in Rusafa or El Carmen, which are super trendy neighborhoods right now, you're competing with everyone else. And the edge in finding a good deal today comes from seeing the potential where others don't. It's still a good time to get in because the numbers still make sense. So let's talk about a real scenario. Say you buy a property for 150,000 euros. You rent it long term for 1,100 euros per month. That's roughly 13,200 euros per year, or around an 8 to 9% ROI before expenses. And with rent increasing at around 5 to 8% per year, that yield improves over time. So for you, that means that on year one, you're receiving an 8%, by year two, closer to a 9%, by year three, potentially a 10%, and so on and so forth. Not bad for an investment that has less volatility than the stock market, and that's without taking into account a mortgage, if you have one, and property appreciation, which in reality would drive your returns well beyond those numbers. Hence why we run all our properties that we're considering for our own investment through our ROI calculator before buying. If you are creative, you will still be able to find good deals. A couple of years ago, you could still buy practically anything and the numbers would work. Now, you need a little bit more strategy. Prices in Valencia have risen more than 25% year over year in some areas, which means easy deals are gone. But appreciation is still strong compared to more stable European markets. And here's the good part. Properties still rent quicker than ever. The demand for apartments and housing is real. So profitability now comes from seeing what kind of rental model would work for your time and profile, and based on that, defining the right property that meets your needs. Knowing how to find a good deal, and by the way, it's not on Idealista, and of course, renovating strategically. So what am I up to? Now that my husband and I live here, at first, we seriously considered buying a totally rundown property, doing a full renovation and renting it per room. But we realized that rent per room can quickly become a full-time job, having to manage multiple tenants, constant turnover, property maintenance, and that day-to-day wasn't aligned with how we wanted to live our lives here in Valencia. So instead, we're prioritizing long-term rentals for now, and housing that can serve workers, students, digital nomads, and not just one single profile. In our case, we're not trying to create a full-time job. We're trying to build stability and want assets that feel calm to own, instead of projects that demand constant attention. What we're not buying in Valencia in 26 are apartments for tourism or Airbnb. There's enough of that. And we also don't want to be at the mercy of one demographic or a change in legislation. We are also not looking for properties that don't have a solid structure or complicated layouts that require permits, architects, intense renovation. So at the moment, we're opting more for simplicity. But what kind of budget should you be looking at? Let's talk real numbers for you. What does a beginner budget look like in Valencia today? If you're starting, a realistic entry point beginning of 2026 is between 180 to 190,000 euros, taking into account all closing costs, a light fix-up with simple furniture. For this budget, you'd be looking at a 2 or 3 bedroom apartment, 1 bathroom, maybe 2 if you're lucky, usually on the 3rd or 4th floor, most likely in a building with no elevator. The building might be a little bit older, probably in the 60s, the kitchen could need a bit of an update. It would be in the neighborhood that we talked about earlier that feels a little early. And if you want to know what that apartment would look like, I actually wrote a blog post where I go over real examples of properties in the 150,000 euro range before all costs. So depending on where you are buying in Valencia, you'll see what kind of size you can expect, what kind of space you'd be getting for that price. I'm going to leave that link down below so you can check out the article. I hope you found this video helpful, and let me know in the comments what brings you to Valencia right now. Is it a lifestyle change? Is it a new chapter? Are you in the same boat as me? And if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe for more videos about our investment projects to come in Valencia. I'll see you next week.